You're probably wondering whether you can really change your brain. I know everyone talks about mind plasticity, but we need some evidence. And in 2014, there was a very interesting experiment in London on those black cab drivers. And what happened was that they were tested, their brains were tested before they started learning the knowledge and after, 2 years later. And what had happened was that the grey matter of their brains in that area had become very much denser. So they felt, well, they looked like they got bigger brains, but they're actually denser brains. So in a graph I can show you, here is the grey density of the grey matter before they learned the knowledge, and here is the density of the grey matter after they learned the knowledge. So it was a huge difference. And it has been shown that this happens for writers when they read a lot and write a lot. And I suppose more scientists will show that it happens for everybody. So your brain changes as you use it. So someone asked me, how do I get back to thinking like a 5-year-old? And there is a way to learn. You can learn a tactic for it. If you don't naturally fall into it, because often I teach people this and their faces light up and they know intuitively what they did at 5. But if you're not in that category, you can learn. It's a bit of a slog, but it's possible and it's worth it. So what you learned at school was to combine, as I said last video, the two ways of thinking. Now since 1978, when a researcher called Fink described the Jean Claude model of thinking. That is, two ways of thinking, the analytic and the generative, the creative one. And he said, first of all, the first sort of thinking must be the generative, the creative thinking, where you create all sorts of ideas. You just throw them down, all these ideas. And only secondly, you actually look to see what they might mean, what they might amount to. It's very important to divide the two, because what we've got to do is unlearn what we learnt at school. We have to prize apart those two ways of thinking. So, how do we do that? Well, the answer is very simple. One very obvious way is to meditate. Now, there are two general sorts of meditation. And Colzato and other researchers in 2014 discovered that one sort of meditation enables creativity far more than the other. So if you go to the internet and get one of those nice apps that tells you to meditate, and then while you're in the meditation tells you how you'll be able to live more kindly and more compassionately, and good fortune will come your way, and be positive about your day, that doesn't help. What you've got to do is meditate in a way that's called open meditation. To do that, you must empty your mind. And that sounds quite an order, doesn't it? But it's possible. If you sit in a quiet place and just try to envisage your breathing in and out. Just imagine your breath coming in and out of your nose. Just concentrate on the breath. And after a while, a thought will come to you that's irrelevant or relevant. You might think, I'm not getting anywhere. You can say to that thought, yes, okay, I hear you, but I'll look after you later. Or a thought might come to you, oh, what am I going to cook for dinner? What you must do is say, I'll worry about that later. This is my time now. So just breathe in and out and concentrate on your breath. And do this every day. Try for half an hour. Try it for a week, a month. This is a new skill. It's not easy to empty your mind, but it's possible. You can see how the mind can change. You can see how the mind can change. You can change your mind. And you'll get reward. And the reward is that one day You'll not be doing anything in particular. And an odd thought will come flickering through your mind. And you'll think, where did that come from? And where it came from is a remote association, way, way in the back of your mind, inaccessible normally, and your emptying your mind has brought it about. So that is something that you can say, oh, it's working. Now, in fact, this has happened to you thousands of times in your life. You've been driving along a boring country road, or you've been doing the ironing or putting out the garbage, something humdrum, and some weird thought has come to you. The difference between you and a person who's regularly creative is that you don't treasure those wild thoughts. And creative people know to value them. So that's another change you've got to have. You've got to say, I from now on will treasure my wildness. So what we're trying to do is get to the associative way of thinking. And the associative way of thinking, as I've described before, you've got all these memories stored away. The memories that you know you have, and if you're often in this state, the memories that you've subliminally taken in. And particularly if you've subliminally taken in a lot of stuff, your brain is packed. It's very dense with memories. And the denser it is, the more extraordinarily creative you are. So try that and see how you go. Give it a go, because it takes a lot of skill, and you're learning a new skill. It took school a long time to teach you to combine those two ways of thinking. So now you're going to have to put some time into prizing them apart. And once you've prized them apart, do your work first of all creatively, just throwing down ideas, and then only afterwards think about what they might mean. And that's because creative thinking, especially when you start, is very fragile. So you can very easily switch back into judging it, being judgmental about it, saying that's silly, that's stupid, I shouldn't have thought that. Because don't forget, as I said last time, the prefrontal cortex, where all our sensible, rational, addictive life comes from, is very judgmental of odd ideas. That's why humans have got where they've got, because they're very analytical. And what we're trying to do is bypass this for a while you're being creative. But it's so fragile that if, for example, you get this funny idea and you try to define it, worse, if you try to tell it to someone, it'll go. I think you know that when you've got this wonderful idea in your head and you put it in words, and it's like taking air out of a balloon. That's because creativity, until you're used to it, is very fragile. So when you do this and you go into this state, which is without words, where your mind is empty, when you come out of it, is something you must do. And that's touch something. Touch your clothes, or the chair around you, or the floor, or the table, because you've got to ground yourself. Remember who you are. Remember your friends, your family. Think about what you're going to have for dinner, because you've got to get back in reality, because you are your brain, but you're much more. You're much more than your wonderful brain.